What's up, friend? Hey, I am Ryan Coral from Studio Sherpas, and this is the Grow Your Video Business podcast, the show for corporate and commercial filmmakers, where we talk about the business of production, sales, marketing, mindset, and process, stuff that has helped me build my own seven-figure video production business. If that sounds like you, then you are in the right place, and I am so glad that you're here. If you're not happy with the clients that you're landing or the budgets that you're working with, maybe they're too small, or you wish that you had a constant flow of new leads coming in, I want you to check out my brand new six-figure commercial filmmaking workshop. It is my best attempt at summing up 17 years of running my own video production business and sharing all the things, or not all of the things, but a lot of things that I've done to consistently find and land profitable 5- and 6-figure jobs. You're going to walk away from this 80-minute workshop with some very actionable to-dos to help you build and scale your video business. And the best part, well, I'm glad that you asked. It is completely free, and you can access it today at studiosherpas.com/workshop. On this episode of the podcast, we talk about how to balance the artist in you with the business owner in you without compromising either one of them, because they are both very, very important to growing a video business. We also talk about how to use a growth mindset, and we talk about a bunch of other really helpful tools and techniques to help you be emotionally present for your business and all of the things. I'm very, very excited for you to be here on this episode of the podcast. And let's get into this episode with my friend Kambria. Here we go. What's up, everybody? Hey, welcome to this episode of the podcast. I am so excited. I've got my friend Kambria Evans here with me. She is the teaching and learning EMDR consultant who has 18 years of experience developing impactful learning experiences for healthcare providers. She is a former director at Stanford Medical School, and today she is a trauma therapist with a private practice in California. Kambria, welcome to my show.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here with you. It's going to be a blast.
It is going to be a blast. What is your favorite thing about being a therapist?
Oh, gosh. The answer to this question is so different now that we've been in this pandemic for so long. Before, it was actually having people come into my office and having kind of that relationship with them and being able to kind of feel their energy and see their shifts happening in therapy. Yeah. And now I'm mostly telehealth. So really a lot of my job, I feel more like a teacher now more than ever because we're through a screen. But I love watching people have a transformation, whether it's in person or through a screen. Yeah.
I'm curious, even in you saying that, there is this like healing ability when you're with, like, physically in the presence of somebody else, right? Like you can really sense, like, by their posture and their position and just all of the, energy or whatever you want to call it. So the fact that, like, so many of us are or have experienced telehealth stuff, and if any of us have seen a therapist over this, the last couple of years, is there any are we not getting the full effect of like what we should be getting when meeting with somebody like you?
I think that human beings have an amazing ability to like modify. Right. So I think it's different now. It's not how it used to be. I have a couple people come in my office because they need in person. But I think we've just found ways to kind of tune into people. Like I used to be able to watch someone's entire body language. I could see if they were smiling, but their foot was moving like this, right? Back and forth. Yeah. And now I just see lots of floating heads and maybe some shoulders. So I think I've had to modify my ability to track body language, and I've become really good at noticing people's facial expressions now more than ever, tone of voice. But I think that if you have a great therapist who's able to modify like that, you're going to get the full experience. They're going to figure out how to attune with you through the screen. And it's been incredible to do therapy with people in their closets, in their cars, in their bathrooms, because we all were quarantined and, didn't have any privacy, and people's kids were like banging on the closet door to come in. And met everyone's families the past couple of years on telehealth. But we figure it out, we're so resilient. It's pretty, it's actually kind of re-inspired my role as a therapist to see how resilient we are through all of this. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, it's been a huge gift that we've been able to spend, I think, about the last year together in the mastermind, just getting to know you and to learn more about your business, but also just you've got such a great heart. And I've got a couple of very close friends that are trauma therapists, and you guys are just like the best people on the planet Earth. So I just honor you. Thank you so much for sharing your gifts, and just doing the thing that you feel like you've been called to do. It takes a special kind of person to do the kind of work that you do, and it is very helpful for a lot of people. So, number one, thank you. And then my follow-up question is, at what point did you realize that that you were able to do that? Was it like in high school, like, all the guys came to you with their girl problems, and you were able to kind of walk them through? Or at what point did you realize, like, man, I feel like this is a strength of mine, and I can help people by walking them through, the stuff that they're going through?
Well, thank you for the appreciation. That feels so good. And I've really enjoyed getting to know you too. Just you are such a good person, and you crack me up all the time. You're the guy that in real life I could never sit next to at a meeting that I wasn't supposed to laugh in.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Or don't ever go to a funeral with me, because that's just even if it's somebody close to me. Golly, it's just
we will not be appropriate. No, you're fantastic. I think that so much of what being a therapist is all about is just the ability to see and notice things that other people just don't see and notice. So I have a very fast mind, but when I'm with a person in session, it's just everything's slowed down. And so I think that I've always been in kind of caretaker roles growing up. I was the oldest child, the oldest of 25 Midwestern cousins, right? So I've always kind of been a mom in that way. I have kids. And so I think when you're just kind of trained to be a nurturer and notice people's emotional experience, it develops. And it's fun, because if I'm working with a kiddo, I'm loving them as a kiddo, but even every adult that I'm working with, I'm just loving on their little inner kid, right? Yeah. So it's just really kind of like parenting all day with people's little people inside them.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. Have you, as we were talking before the show, I wrote this down because I was like, oh man, I wonder if she's read this. Have you read the book, Todd Herman? He wrote a book called The Alter Ego. I think that's what it's called. Or maybe it's just Alter Ego.
I haven't read it. Tell me about it.
Oh man. Yeah. It was just so interesting. I'm going to try to get him on the show. He's kind of a big deal. So, as are you. So, getting you both on the show is pretty hard. So, he kind of talks about he works with high profile athletes, super successful executives, and the summarization is that whatever thing that we're struggling, whatever personal life, work life, if we can assume an alter ego, we can actually do more than we think we can. It's pretty brilliant. I mean, I'm sure it aligns with so much of the work that you do, and the stories that he shares are so cool. I'll just share this one that I thought was really, really neat. He talks about they took all these second or third grade kids, they grouped them into 3 different groups, and they had some kind of a problem, they were supposed to solve a puzzle of some sort, and they just told the one group, hey, go solve this thing, and they watched all of them. They made notes, and then the second group, they told all those kids hey, think of your favorite superhero, and that's who you are when you go into this room. So go solve this problem, and all those kids go in there. And then the third group, they actually gave them the costumes of the superhero that they wanted to be, and then those kids went into the room, and it is amazing. It's just so mind blowing. But they timed each group how long it took them to figure out the puzzle, and lo and behold, the group that wore the costume was the number one. They did it the fastest. The group that thought of themselves with this alter ego, the superhero, they finished second, and then the people that were the slowest or that gave up the quickest was the group that just were told to go in and do it. I just think that's mind-blowing.
Well, it makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, we all have parts of us, right? I mean, I was just talking in the mastermind the other day about how I have a part of me, right? That's this, I'm from Michigan. I follow the rules. I'm the oldest daughter. I'm the caretaker. I don't want to upset authority, right? And then I have this other part that's rebelling against all of this, these kind of beliefs in the mental health industry and with kind of clinical modalities and business stuff. So we all have these different parts of us. I think even Beyonce has a stage identity.
Yep.
Sasha Fierce.
He talked about her. Yep.
Right? Because it's so hard for us to step into who we want to be or like what we think we're supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of what we do in therapy is parts work. It's really interesting. I work with a lot of leadership in the tech industry here in Silicon Valley, and it's so amazing for me to get to witness these really strong leadership parts of them, right? And then these really younger parts of them, and to notice with them how these parts work together to do their jobs, to be with their families, how it's hard for them, I think, to shift out of their leadership roles into different parts of themselves when they're not at work. So, parts work is been around for, I don't know, over 100 years. Fritz Perls was the first person that wrote a book about it. And I love that people are continuing to kind of rebrand and use that same idea to help themselves accomplish what's important to them.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. As you work with people, we've all got stuff that needs work on. What would you say might be, well, let's put on the lens of, the people listening to the show, they're typically very creative, and they have to be business oriented. And a lot of times those are two sort of different things. Like one is maybe more X's and O's, or not X's and ones and zeros. So I'm also coaching 6th grade football, so I think that's why I've got the X's and O's in my head. So ones and zeros, right? Maybe more business, like, hey, you've got to do this, and you got to have an order, and you got to have processes and systems and whatever. And then the creative is A, Z, Y, Q, Z, just all over the place. Yep. So with that lens, knowing that, the personality in general of a filmmaker, video business owner, what would you think, a couple of the top areas that might be a struggle or harder for us because of the way that we're wired?
I love this question for so many reasons. I have actually recently been really curious about how people's just brains are wired. There's a lot of information coming out in research saying that a lot of leadership in tech who are really creative thinkers, engineers, they have what we call kind of neurodivergent minds. So they might have a diagnosis.
That's what I call it too.
They might have a diagnosis of ADD or ADHD or, OCD even kind of creates this compulsion for people to keep going and keep working. And so it's interesting as a therapist to see what parts of this is just our wiring of how our brains get dopamine, essentially, right? Yeah. People typically with ADHD are super creative, really intelligent people. In the Bay Area, we call them twice exceptional because not only are they just all over the place, brains linking fast together, but also they are just their minds can see everything creatively that gives them so much power. It can also be a place where they feel like it trips them up, right? So I imagine if you have these business owners who are also, I'll call artists, really, for video production, I think it's really a matter of understanding, how do I have a relationship with the part of me that is the business owner, right? And the part of me that is creative. And then how do these two parts feel about each other? How does the creative part feel about the business part? Because not always, but oftentimes these parts can kind of feel like they're on polar opposites of the spectrum. Some people might have associations my creative part is really fun and really free, and it's who I really am. And the business part of me doesn't feel like that. It feels serious and heavy, and maybe I get bored when I'm in that business part of myself. So really, I think for me, as someone who's more neurodivergent and creative, but also a business owner, it's how do those two parts work together to make work fun and productive at the same time? It's tough.
Yep. So let's just spend the rest of our time figuring that out. Just kidding. But seriously, let's talk about toolkit or some things. I literally right before this conversation, before my wife was making fun of me fixing my hair, I was having a conversation with her. Yes, my bangs. I like my bangs. So she's an artist. She's a painter. She does amazing work. and she gets very frustrated because she's got an awesome Instagram presence. She makes these awesome reels. Like everything that she does is really great. She has an incredibly small audience, which is really like our friends, and then some other creatives that she has met along the way through Instagram. But like she has not figured out, she has not tapped like how to, get her Instagram to explode or, get a lot more. So she carries this burden of like, my work sucks. She says stuff like that. And I'm like, it's how do you say that? And then like somebody just paid $1,000 for, one of your pieces. Somebody just spent $300 on another piece. Like the artists would like die to be able to, paint something and then turn around and sell it. So, the fact you've got this teeny tiny audience. So like, yeah, not as many people, like the percentage of those people, there's just not as many of them. So, if you had 10,000 followers, then yes, a lot more people would be buying your stuff. So she carries that. And then I become like, I'm trying to be the cheerleader and like push her through, and it doesn't work. So give me a tool. Help me help her.
Well,
Let's start there.
Well, if she was here, bring her in here.
Andrea. Just kidding.
Well, there are parts of our businesses we don't want to do. Or there's parts of our businesses that we do and they don't go the way that we want them to. We don't feel as successful, right? And so I think as someone who is a creative person who's maybe more neurodivergent or whatever we want to call it, it's a matter of really understanding like, what am I really good at and what feels good, right? And also I think coming into this with like a mindset of experimentation and playing, right? So I'm not going to pretend to know about how to navigate social media and followers and all that stuff. That's not my jam. But I think that if she's doing that, it doesn't feel good to her, right? And she has a part of her that's like, this is the social media part of me that's going to make if it's fun to make them, great. Like that's the creative process, right? But if she's not getting the outcome she wants, I don't know. It's like, she has to ask herself, do I want to keep developing this part of me to figure this out and I'm going to bang my head against the wall until it works? Is that important to my business? Or can I outsource it because it's not important for me to grow the Instagram savvy part of myself, right? Yeah. Because sometimes I think as creative business owners, we almost feel this pressure that we're supposed to have all of these parts as developed as our creative part. And I don't know that that's realistic.
Yeah. I would say like that's... The majority of people, the majority of video business owners that I talk to, they're overwhelmed because if the only thing we talked about was social media, right? Because that's what back when I started, it was like, okay, make sure you have a website. Actually, before a website, make sure you have a business card and a phone number, and then focus on your website. And that was it. There was no promoting your business. There was no social media. Yes, I am that old. So there was a lot less to like think through. Actually, the stressor that I had was like, man, should I advertise in this magazine or not in this magazine? There weren't a ton of industry magazines that I was like, this would make sense. So it was just like, should I do it or no? Today it's like, okay, there's no choice. I have to do social media. Do I do all of them? Yeah, well, yeah, I guess I have to. There's this feeling of like, we're super far behind to try to stay ahead of the trend. That's really hard. And that's just like marketing our business through social media. And then there's like me, who I'm telling people like, yeah, you can do social media and it can work, but what about like actual like real life networking, like taking people out to lunch and like going to events and meeting people? And then there's all of the introverts that are like, oh my gosh, like please don't tell me I have to like go meet people. I just want to stay behind the camera, stay behind my computer here. I'm safe. This is a safe place. So you start adding these things to the craft of creating beautiful videos in amazing films. I'm so good at that. Like that's the thing that I if I could just do that. But to do that, to get your voice out there and to really share the creativity that you have with the world that can change people's lives, there has to be. Unfortunately, not all of our stuff is going to go viral. Maybe none of our stuff will go viral. So there's like some like work that we have to do to like get that work in front of the right people, so that the people that actually will give us the money so that we can keep doing this thing will see it and will buy it and will want it or will share it. And that's a lot of the struggle. I know that's like a lot of things, but I would say that probably is a pretty good encapsulation of what a lot of us feel. So like what could be, a practice that maybe it's a way that we think or something that we can do to just say, like, listen, I'm not going to be able to do all the things, right? Like, where do I start? What do I do? How do I stop being so overwhelmed? How do I get Ryan to stop talking like a million miles an hour? Like, we got to start somewhere. Let's just start there.
I'm going to answer this with saying also that I'm figuring. Oh. I'm figuring. Well, how does it make you feel? I'm going to say I'm figuring this out too. Like I'm figuring this out too, because I do have my clinical practice where I see therapy clients, and I also have my other business, right, Zero Disturbance, that is helping therapists figure out how to structure their practices so that they don't burn out and they can sustain through this pandemic and through life, right? So I made this little baby business, I guess, 1.5, 2 years ago, right? I birthed this little business during COVID, and it's the same. It's like, how do I get followers? How do I sell passive income products? And how do I get people to watch my podcast or my YouTube channel? And it's like, it's hard enough, I think, to just make the video or like make the message or I mean, let's just zoom out and give us all credit for 1 second. The first step is give yourself credit, because what we're literally doing as business owners who are creatives, who are making any kind of media, we are literally articulating our identity as it's developing. I mean, just that project in itself is so huge and mind-blowing and beautiful and precious at the same time, right? So not only are we making meaning and creating this identity for ourselves, for our business, but then we're having to figure out, how do I communicate that to a bunch of people out there that I don't even know and haven't even met before? I mean, the fact that we even have to figure this out is so surreal to me. It's so surreal, right? So just for me, like, I've just decided that I'm not going to personally pressure myself to grow a list. Now, I have a very small audience. It's EMDR therapists. It'll probably expand to more therapists later. But, to just think about like who am I actually speaking to, right? It's not everybody, because however you make a message that has meaning and whatever your identity is, it's not going to land on everybody and make sense to everybody. It's tricky. I didn't give you an answer, but I didn't respond to the question.
You didn't. Thank you. I think, starting with that, like, just that idea of like giving yourself credit, I think that's huge. And when we look at, honestly, yes, you can make videos with your iPhone. And I would say majority of people that like listen to the show, that's not what they're doing to make money. So if they're not using their iPhone to create films for their clients, then they're using something that's way more complicated. They're having to figure out ISO and shutter and aperture and lighting and audio and, just lighting alone. There are people that make a living just by like teaching lighting, because it's not just like you get a light and then you're good. There's so much involved in that. So yes, to give credit to all of you filmmakers and say, like, the fact that you can make anything, and then go ahead. Were you gonna say something?
Well, in a pandemic too, by the way, like, there's stuff happening around us that's tricky. So it's like, it's stressful what we're doing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I love that thought of like, first off, you're doing some incredible work, right? And even telling yourself everything. That.
It's everything. Because think about it. Like, you make videos. I'm a therapist, but like, I was thinking this morning about the overlap of our roles, right? We are both literally tasked with helping someone go through what I think is a therapeutic process of, what's your message? What's your identity? How are we going to communicate that? Because all the lighting and all the messaging and that's all communicating who this person is. Yeah. And then we're supposed to be authentic on top of that. We're supposed to come in and be authentic with our brand, right? Mm-hmm. And so the fact that there are people out there like you, like me, that are partnering with people to figure out how to do that, that's a really important role, to have someone walk alongside you with that.
We talk a lot about imposter syndrome, because I'm probably, or I felt like the biggest imposter, so much throughout my career, especially since starting my own coaching and education brand. It's like, wait, who am I to like think I could help other people in the video space? And I do. I feel like, okay, like today, like, yes, I feel like I'm very helpful. Catch me on one of my bad days, I'm gonna be like, why am I doing this? I quit. I'm gonna burn it all. So imposter syndrome in even on our mastermind call, this was a topic that came up yesterday. So it's nice to know that I'm not alone in that. What would you say that is like, let's see here. Somebody had asked a question in the group. I just want to give credit here. Somebody did bring up imposter syndrome. Oh, Jesse Smith, how to stop comparing your work to others. And then Camilo Camilo J also brought this up. So it's definitely a topic like in our community. Obviously, like we're not the only ones with it, but any thoughts on how we can work through our own imposter syndrome?
So many thoughts, and also I want to say that I'm right there with you. Yeah. Like I'm right there with you figuring this out. Again, I think it's kind of how what's the framework of our relationship with competition, right? Using air quotes, or with the person who's done the thing that we're trying to do, or the thing that we are almost quite there but not yet, or theirs looks prettier or shinier, or they have more followers, whatever it is. Like there's always going to be somebody we can compare ourselves to, right? Again, I think for me, I'll just name this, is that, can I go into my workday with a mindset, like a growth mindset, right? So when I was at Stanford, I got the pleasure of putting on a faculty development retreat for all of the medical faculty that teach the first 2 years of the med students. And we got Carol Dweck to come in and give a speech to the faculty about growth mindset, right? And she was comparing this with fixed mindset. And essentially the idea is that you're just going to have to accept, if you're going to survive, you're going to have to accept that you are learning all the time and you are always growing. And if you can have a relationship with that feels loving and fun and good, right? Just like for those of us that are parents, right? We have most of the time, such patience with our kids when they're learning and figuring things out. We already know that they don't know that yet. And they're going to try something and they're going to do it wrong a million trillion times. And they're not going to be like the kid next door. And we have this acceptance, I think, as parents that's somehow okay. But when it comes to us as adults, we are so hard on ourselves. Yes. We're so hard on ourselves. And so again, I think if you can notice this part of you that maybe is younger and trying to figure something out, and to have that loving relationship with that part of you, right? I will share this. I don't share this often, but I will share this, that when I was younger, I used to actually journal to my older self, and my older self used to journal to me, right, in my little diary.
Wow.
And now still to this day, right, I will kind of in my head talk to my older self as a business owner, right? Or I will ask my older wiser business owner self to talk to me now, right? And it's like, again, making a part of us that can comfort us is everything. Is everything if we're gonna be any business owner, but especially one that has the important task of what we're being asked to do every day.
Mm-hmm. I love that. As cheesy as that might seem to some, what it makes me think about is any time that we were just with a group of new parents, and somebody was actually it was Graham. I think somebody yesterday, we're talking about how like having kids, like we thought having little kids, like that was as hard as it gets, right? But then, then you have teenagers, and, they grow up, and like the challenges become a lot different. So thinking about like right now, I can think about myself as a 60-year-old man looking at like the struggles and the frustrations that I have as a parent now. And I can just hear like, my parents or my in-laws or even, grandparents saying like, you just like enjoy this stage. Like it's so precious and it's so good. And, just wait, like, there are other challenges that await you. So just make sure that you're taking the time to, stop and smell the roses today. You are in a much simpler time than it actually seems and it feels like. I love that, because anytime that I think, if I look at my business from years ago, I'm like, oh man, geez, I thought I knew so much, and I thought but there more money, more problems, different direction for the business. Like it's sort of like this, being able to embrace where you're at today and understanding that, the work that you're doing today, it's going to be better than it was. Hopefully it's better than it was. But just being patient and kind to your old self, and and to yourself today, because that one day is going to be your old self, your past self. Does that make sense? Is that like Inception or Back to the Future?
We're time traveling. Well, here's what I'll say as a therapist. The brain doesn't care what time it is. Your brain does not actually care if it is the present, the past, or the future, because what your brain is always trying to do is it's trying to take any lived experiences you've had to inform the narrative of what's going to happen in an hour and what's going to happen 10 years from now, right? So if I've been banging my head against the wall, like, why don't I have more Instagram followers, or how come this person, my brain, right, is going to take that information and make this story of like, yeah, it's always going to be this, right? And so I think if we are able to reach through time and connect with our older business selves, right? I mean, that's really what being in a mastermind is anyway. I said this yesterday in Graham's group, which is like, you know, everyone around us that is external to us can be playing that role of the older, wiser business person who's going to comfort and encourage you and remind you to use a growth mindset, right? And I think that's where the power is. And when we're around people that are taking risks and being creative, right, it's contagious, but the brain also takes that in as like, this might happen for me. And then hope is created, and it's like kind of a more positive message. I also will share in terms of tools, so that when I have therapy clients come in, there's kind of 3 levels of time I talk about a lot, which is like, you have your baby self, your teenager self, and your kind of fully formed adult self. I don't know when we actually get into our fully formed adult self. I'm 42 and I'm like, am I a grown up yet? But
I getting close.
But the idea, which can apply to business, right, is that you have this younger part of you that's like learning everything and vulnerable and scared and like helpless and powerless. And then you have this teenage part that's like tough upper lip, protecting this younger part, like, you know, maybe that's the Sasha Fierce persona, right? That's like, I got it, you know. I never think I'm 15. And then you have this kind of older, calmer, more assured adult part that's kind of loving both of these parts, okay? And so taking that model, my practice for therapy clients is 6 years old, right? My other little business, Zero Disturbance, it's a baby. It's like not even 2. So of course I'm feeling scared and powerless and helpless, and of course that makes sense, right? So again, it's the way we talk about these parts of us, but also like knowing our business is young gives us, I think, more patience and compassion and understanding as well.
Yeah, that's really good. I do want to just take a second to speak to all the video business owners that are like 3 years or less. I should say like 5 years or less. I think most businesses fail within the first 5 years. There's a desire, like, you know, everybody's got really cool stuff online.
It looks like
right?
you
just
froze.
Just go through people's stories, and it's like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe people can make stuff like that. That is amazing. And so the feeling of, you know, I'm an imposter, or like my work is it's just never going to be that good, right? So why don't I just throw the towel in right now? Like, those experiences are real, and it's hard. My recommendation is like, to try not to watch other people's stuff, so that you just can, you know, be a kid and enjoy all of the learning that you're doing. Obviously, like, you know, educate yourself and figure out how to get better. But just know that, you know, you're 5 years or less in business. You have a baby business, just like Kambria is saying. Like, treat yourself like you would treat a baby. Like, just be kind and be so patient, and know that there's so much to learn, and you have so much time. Like, there's nothing saying like you have to have it all figured out by this point. But seriously though, by year 7, you should have it all figured out. I'm just kidding. That's really good. Thank you for that nugget. Andrew did bring up a good point. Andrew Cardy, inside of the group, said he talked about the balance of like, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? There's that, but also like being content with where you're at. Right. Is that like a thing? Because I would say like my own experience is, I would say like, yes, I'm content. Like, but I ain't staying here. I think I've convinced myself of that. I don't know if I actually believe that now that I'm like, you know, talking it out loud here. But what is like a healthy balance of that? Is there one?
A healthy balance is whatever you freaking want. Honestly, like we talked about this yesterday in the group. It's my kids are 6. I don't want a massively huge business at this time, right?
Yeah.
Right? Your business kind of it grows over time, but also, you get to kind of decide like how big is this now? How much of me is needed, right? I think most people that have their own businesses always want to keep growing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they wouldn't be business owners. It's kind of like in our wiring and just in terms of how our brains are. Um, but I will share this. I get really triggered and irritated and I felt it earlier when you were speaking, when people say, just enjoy it. Because I'm sitting here with twins and I'm like so tired. I'm like,
Yeah.
don't say that to me. I know you're right, but do not say that to me right now because that is not, I'm trying to enjoy this,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think the question I like around the version of that I can digest right now is, what can I do that will make this more enjoyable or make this more fun, knowing that it is hard and stressful, right? Knowing that I am learning because it's tough. I mean, when you're starting a business from the beginning, I mean, that's all hands on deck a lot of times.
Yeah. And for a long time, it feels like
Mm-hmm.
17 years in, I'm like, do things slow down? I'm just kidding. So my definition of like, the name of the show is Grow Your Video Business. And I probably don't talk about this enough, but my version of what you're talking about, like, yeah, it's like whatever you like, what's the balance of like growing your business or being content? It's like, what do you want? Your business should be designed to support the life that you want. Like that's the goal. And if you can grow your business in a way that it serves your life, so that doesn't mean that you necessarily need 10 employees to be like, okay, finally, I got 10 employees, we're hitting $1 million, we're doing these things, now we've got a studio. Like if 10 employees, to me, like that sounds stressful, especially like 5 years ago, when I'm like 12 years into business, at one point we did have like 8 employees, and that meant we had to book a lot of jobs, and I was the only salesperson. I was responsible for all that. So every new employee, all I was thinking was like, oh my gosh, like I gotta. And so like growing my business that way, that's not what I recommend. I'm trying to grow my business in a way to where like I disappear and the business runs. So my business, we have fewer employees than we ever have had in the past decade, and our revenue is higher than it ever has been, and our profits are higher than it ever. That means like we are more efficient today than we ever have, because we've learned, we've applied. I mean, the pandemic was in some way, some parts of that was a gift for us, because we had to. We were down 2 employees and we were about to hire them, but then lockdown happened. And we're like, we shouldn't hire anybody. Okay, well, let's figure out how can we contract these out. Do we actually need this position? Like, how can we get creative with it? We got creative with it. We came out of the pandemic and we're like, we still don't need those positions. So like, let's just keep rocking like we are. And we get to the end of the year and our CPA is like, man, this was like, profitable year for you guys. How did you, you didn't even, your salaries were lower, all that stuff. And like, that's the kind of way that I want to grow. So not like big. I don't even know how you say that. I want to grow small. It's like,
well, it's on your terms. I mean, this gets back to this. I think some of your community's questions around imposter syndrome and comparing, right? You don't know what that person is doing to get all the followers or do all the. I mean, you don't know how old their business is. You don't know if they're making any profit, quite honestly, just because you're seeing.
That's really good.
What they're putting out. I mean, I have a colleague on Instagram and she's an EMDR therapist. She has like over 50,000 followers. I don't know if she's selling a damn thing. I have no idea, right? Yeah. But I think to have your business on your terms is the right way to do it, right? Yeah. Otherwise, what's the point? It's like when I was going to leave Stanford with this very secure job that was like a done deal, it was like, if I'm going to do this, it's going to be on my terms. I'm going to have the schedule that supports my family and myself. I'm going to be able to decide, what projects I'm working on. There's something really powerful in that, right? And there are so many business coaches out there who are like, in order to be successful, you have to have X followers, or you have to hit 1 million, or you have to have 10 employees. And it's like, those are made up metrics. Like, I think one thing as a business owner that's so liberating is like, so much of this is just made up. Like, people are just making stuff up and then telling other people what to do. And I think why I love business coaching other therapists, and I know that you love doing this as well, it's like helping people figure out on their terms what's going to work for them.
Yeah.
Is a different approach to teaching people.
Yeah. Yeah. Like whenever I do a coaching call, it's like, okay, like, you know, I have a form people fill out, and it's like, where do you want to be? Like, what do you want your revenue to be? And it's like all these like big numbers and like cool stuff. And I'm like, okay, like, so let's talk about like, you know, what do you want? It's like, well, I want this thing. Okay, why do you want it? It's like, oh, and like as people process through, it's like, okay, well, maybe I don't need to make $1 million in order to do that. Like, because what I really want is freed up time. You know, so if I want freed up time, or I want to spend more time with my family, or, you know, whatever those things are, don't necessarily equate to, well, you got to have 10 employees to get there. It's like, do you? Like, can you? Because I know other people that have done it and didn't have to hire 10 employees. So that's a good nugget there. Kambria, this has been such a gift. It's so fun to watch you, at least in one of your many sweet spots. Thanks for all that you shared with us today. Where can people follow along with what you've got going on?
Yeah, so we have a YouTube channel. It's my name, Kambria Evans, and we also have a website, ZeroDisturbance.com. If anyone's listening who's a therapist or knows a therapist, they can opt in, and we have a bunch of free resources for folks to learn about passive income and different kind of ways they can schedule their practices so that they can do things on their terms.
Yeah, awesome. I'm excited. I've got two people in mind. I'm going to share two of my therapist friends that I'm going to share this with. So excited for them to hear this. How do you want to leave us today?
I want to say thank you. This is always so fun.
You're welcome. My gosh.
To talk with you and to learn with you. And I just want to say to you and to all the video producers listening to this, that knowing you has actually helped me understand how much of a therapy role you play, right, with your clients, because you are really helping them form identity that's going to keep changing. You're really helping them create a narrative of their business, which is really vulnerable, kind of scary thing, I think, for people to be able to do. So I would love to leave today just inviting people listening to this to think about themselves with that really important purpose. Because I think if you have an anchor around your purpose and your mission, a lot of the fear and imposter syndrome and things that we just feel as business owners, they lose their disturbance level. They lose their intensity if we just anchor ourselves in like, I'm doing this and I'm changing lives and it's important. And that good feeling when it comes into our body is so much stronger than a lot of the fear that kind of lingers around the things we've talked about today.
Oh man, that was so good. Oh yes. I could talk about that for a long time. Man, that's really rich. Nick Nanton episode, if you haven't listened to that one, we talk about that. It's like, if you're, you know, once you can realize that your message is more important than yourself. And you know, one of the gifts that so many producers have is working with clients to tell them, to remind them, because so many people are like, oh no, my story's not important. Like, you don't want to, like, it's like, no. You know, creating a brand story and having you as the face and your voice, like, people need to see you and hear you. Like, we do that, you know, that's the work that we do. Like, you know, trying to give the courage to our talent, on-screen talent, that they can do it. It looks good. It sounds good. So yeah, to embrace that and just say like, we are helping, and not even, I mean, yes, the final video for sure, but there's the process to get from talent, you know, looking in the camera to the, you know, the final video living on YouTube or wherever. So there are a lot of gifts and skills that I would say, like, as producers and filmmakers, we wouldn't even like say like, oh yeah, we that's what I do, but it is what we do. It is the work that we do. So I think that's just brilliant. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Yes.
That was really
good.
Well,
and when you teach people who own businesses and in this video process, you are teaching them to invite relationship into their business. I mean, really a brand message, identity, it's just like inviting someone to have an attachment or a relationship. And this is literally the biological drive of every human being, which is beautiful.
I love that. I also learned a new term, neurodivergent. No.
Yes.
Is that it? Oh, yeah. And then what do I say? Neurodivergent pathways? Is that like a sentence?
That sounds good too. Yes.
I'm just
really
gonna,
good.
I'm just gonna, next conversation, I'm gonna be like, well, guys, what about neurodivergent pathways? I can't even say the word.
Yeah. Creative minds are often differently wired.
That's right. I'll follow up with that. Kambria, thank you so much. You're a gem. Appreciate you a lot. And this is really fun.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Hey, thank you so much for hanging with us today. Remember, you can access the show notes for links to all the things that we talked about on this episode. If you are watching on YouTube or you're watching this on Facebook, I would love for you to leave a comment and let me know, what was your big takeaway? Did you like this episode? Is mental health something that you are making space for? I hope it is, friend. This is incredibly needed by all of us. Oh, man, I'm very, very grateful for Kambria spending time with us today. If you like the show, would you do me a favor and take a screen grab if you're on your phone or your computer and send it to a friend, a filmmaker that you think, I guess they don't have to be a filmmaker, but somebody that would be encouraged from this episode. I would love for you to do that. And hey, don't forget, we've got our in-person event coming up, the Onward Summit. Soon enough, instead of talking about getting you here to come to my studio from October 2nd through the 5th, I'm going to be talking about like, hey, check out all the amazing photos and video that we captured. Look at all the fun that we had. And man, you don't want to miss out. It's going to be incredible. So get here. You can get out. You can get more information out of the website. That doesn't make any sense. If you go to studiosherpas.com/onward, and you can follow us on the socials at Grow Your Video Business. You can DM me at Ryan Coral. You can. If you're not watching this, you're missing out on all of my sweet moves. You can always shoot an email to me, ryan@studiosherpas.com. Thank you so much for being here. I'll be on next week's episode. I hope you will be too. Till then, peace out.